So starting it off, the suspicious words many-to-many text join is what we'll talk about, and we'll wanted to show you this first slide that really walks you through as much as it looks like a lot of gobbledygook. For the most part, I'm not sure you can see my actual mouse, but as you look through this particular command, it's basically joining on a blank field and then joining on another blank field, which is weird. Like, why would you join two files on blank fields? And then, even in addition to that, as you look further down in the command, you have the word many as the last word of that command, which is actually going to do a many-to-many match on the blank field. And that many-to-many match on a blank field will provide back to you so many results, because it's literally going to match every record to every record. But there's an if statement in there, and I bolded and put some red in there, and you can see that if statement that says, if find all trim search on field in the search through field. So what it's basically doing in this command is it's doing this full many-to-many match on the blank field. So it's going to match every record to every record, but only when the search on field, let's say we're looking for the word fraud, is in the other file. So and you can kind of see there, I have a file name with a dot and then the field name. It's actually looking into that other file as well. So it's a lot going on in this one command, and this command can take some time to run. It will go quickly for us today because we're running it just on a small data set. But if you do run this on a million record data set, it will take some time. It's probably advisable. I've run it on 10,000 versus 10,000 type data sets, and it works fine. It's done within a few minutes, 2 to 3 minutes or so. So, okay, wanted to show you that. Even though it's gobbledygook, it will help as we go into the actual script. So bear with me 1 second, and I will bring over my ACL so that you can see ACL. Now ACL has, we have a lot of files here that I'm working with, and the only two files that I'm going to work with for this session is just the HR file and the vendor file. So just for right now, let's just focus on HR file and vendor file. So a lot of people like to do these vendor to employee matches. Now you could have a file, I don't, but you could have a file, the HR file could be a field here that is called like weird word, and you could have bribe, fraud, plug, all of these words that resonate with fraud, and then you can search through. Let's say, so that's the search on field. Excuse me. Yeah, that is the search on. What do you want to search on? And then you're going to search through this particular field, let's say the supplier name. Now, I really doubt someone would make a supplier name saying, bribe payment or fraud payment, but at least they'd be honest, if they did that and they were committing fraud. But in this supplier name, I wanted to note that this script can go beyond just doing a vendor to employee match, as we are doing here, and go and be used much further than that into other things. So we have 4 scripts. As I said, the big one is going to be this journal entry scripting, and actually we have 4 scripts. So we have a little starter and then the 3 main scripts that run. Now this text matching script, what we're going to utilize here is, let me kind of walk you through this step by step, and as I do, we're going to be talking through these more complex data management type concepts. Now, the dialog box here is basically going to open up a file of where you're going to search through, and in the search through, in our case, we're going to search through the vendor table. So that's where this field is going to be searching through. The searching on, so that's more the HR file, and then the HR field that you're going to select. So it's a really simple script, but as you could see here, you could use this with a purchase order file, search through, and the weird word table that you could make a table in Excel and import it in and utilize that. You could utilize a purchase order table matched up to an AP table, a journal entry table matched up to, there's so many. But let's just kind of keep it to this HR and vendor for right now. Okay, so the next thing it's going to do is open up the search through, which is the vendor table, and create a blank field called, blank. It will create a record number as well. Then what we're going to be doing is create a search through field. So this is basically just cleaning up the search through field. So notice in the vendor table that we have here, we have, Cox Executive Supplies, phone company, and nothing is uppercase. Whereas back on the HR file, everything in the last name, which is all we're working with, is uppercase. So this script here, or this command, is going to actually define a field, and it's going to be all trimmed uppercase search through. So that's going to be the first thing. So then I'm going to extract all of those fields to a table, I believe called input file search through, and then we're going to do the same exact thing on the search on table, where we're going to create the blank field, we'll convert the field the same way, and we'll create the search on. Now this does go to a data management concept in ACL, and again, I'm working with small files here, but as you go to your table layout, I know this is a small file, but let's imagine this file had 500 fields in it, and when you went to the record length was 2,000. It was just going way out there. If you ran a sort, a summarize, a duplicate test, whatever you call it, on that larger table, it's going to run for a long time. If you extract only the fields you need, and as I'm doing here, just extracting 2 or 3 fields, and again, I'm using a record number as a way to kind of, marker what is that data. So even if that HR file doesn't have like a good marker to use, employee number for whatever reason is duplicated in here for some reason or whatever, by creating that record number field, which you can imagine it's over here, that will allow you to utilize that and get back to that table and be able to pull in other data from that table later on in the script. But again, it's not going to impact processing too much. So I'm just extracting only what I need, just 3 little fields from one table, 3 little fields from another table. Okay, so here again, as we had said, this is the main attraction, as I put. That is that script right there, or that set of commands right there, where in this main attraction, we're opening up the search on field, and we're then saying, let's search secondary, search through the vendor table. So this is HR, this is vendor. We're going to join on the blank field, like we said. We'll bring in these fields, and then the secondary key, the blank field, and it's a many join. But this is what kind of keeps it from being so big. If you had 10,000 records matched to 10,000 records, I think you'd have, 10 million records as your final output, or something like that, or 10 billion, and it would just be too many. So what this find statement does right here, oops, what this find statement does is this allows us to focus in on only those transactions where the search on field, so I'm using a find function, search on, so what are we looking for? The word, in one case, it was COX, and then it's looking through this search through field, but it's actually going into this table called input search through ext, and that is the secondary table. So, again, we're applying this filter in the join command so that when you join with that filter in there, you're going to ultimately get only what's kind of filtered out. That again is the big statement. That's the one that takes the most time to run, and also provides you with a limited kind of output. I don't have the time today, or we don't have the time today, to run it on every one. So if we had 10,000 records, it would take about 5 minutes or so to run, and who wants to wait for that? So, but again, just keep that in mind. Now, note here, I put this all trim on the search on field, converted again, and I gotta tell you, I don't know why exactly. I've done this where I don't have the all trim in here, and I lose a few records. And what bothers me is that up top here, I've already all trimmed this. So I'm sitting there going, well, I've already all trimmed it. I'm then kind of all trimming it again down here, and that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me why I have to do that. But I just have to tell you, based on my own testing, that I need to all trim it again. So for if you ever use this, make sure that you all trim. I guess you could arguably all trim over here, but I've had trouble when I all trim again on this kind of odd feature of looking through another file. So I have to say this part of the function I have not used probably in 15 years up until then, and then I figured out, oh, that's how you can look into another table while you're doing a join, which is kind of neat, and I never thought that you could do that. So, but again, that's how that command works. Once that result comes out, all I'm then doing is taking that file and I'm joining it back on record number to the original two files in order to get the search through fields and the search on fields. So again, I started out, I'm going to create this temporary file that'll just have this converted name, the record number, and a blank field, and all these other fields here just get removed. Then I'm going to join back and get all of the details in that code there, and then we just kind of clean stuff up through these delete functions below. And if you haven't seen these delete functions below, it's again good data management. So that's part of today's webinar. Might as well explain it to you. The delete input file search through ext.fil. So if you go delete file name.fil OK, it will actually delete it on your hard drive. Delete format will delete the format over here on your on your command line, or excuse me, on your project navigator. Okay, so that is what we're doing there. Why don't we run this now that I've explained it ad nauseum? We'll just kind of run that and say the search through. I'm going to search through the vendor file, and again, you're going to search through the vendor file. I'm going to search through the supplier name. Then on the search on, I'm going to select the HR file, and the search on field, I'm going to select the employee last name. So search, and sorry, it says search through. It should be search on. So they're both search on, and we're going to hit OK. And sure enough, again, there weren't a whole lot of records here, 32 records and about 15 records here, but we then notice how we have the Jones is showing up as Joseph Jones, the Smith is Denise Smith, and again, if you had words like bribe or plug or net to zero or whatever you're looking for, all of these things would then be looking through that particular field for those items. So hopefully that helps in doing some of your text matching type scripting. And I think this is a great test for any sort of employee to vendor testing that you might do, especially if you want to take a last name. And this is a great example, Cox Executive Supplies, even though the employee name is Cox, Friedman Consulting, Friedman, they don't always show up when you look for the last name like this one where it's Joseph Jones and it looks like a T&E payment. They can look up like a business name, and that's what you're looking for. You're kind of looking for those business name type situations. So wanted to show you that and kind of conclude on that script. And again, that is the text matching script that you run, and we've dissected that. Going back to the data menu itself, I wanted to walk through some of the features of the data menu and just make sure we touched on this as part of the webinar today. First off, you can extract data. Obviously, extract if something's true, and you can export data to a new application. I know there's a version 9.3 right now, but I'm utilizing 9.2.3, so I'm one behind the new release. But the new release, what's nice, and I don't think it changes in 9.3, is you do have Excel 2010 now being an option that you can export to, which is nice. And again, going down, I've loaded Crystal Report templates into here, but I have to be honest, I'm not a pro at Crystal Reports, but I do know that you can create Crystal Reports. And what you need to do if you have a desire to get more into Crystal Reports is ACL has on their website, if you are a supported user, the ability to get the Crystal Report object code, and then once you have that, you can create a template, you can create the report. if that's what you desire. We'll be talking about indexing files and relating files later in the program, so I'll leave that, but those will be two things we do. We just talked about the join command, so there are many options in the join command, and again, we'll touch on a lot of them later. The merge tables we'll also touch on, as I want to talk through some more complex ways of adjusting tables so that you can bring them together. Sorting records, again, what is the difference between index and sort and pre-sort, we'll talk about. I know we talked about a lot of these other commands in the data management testing, but verify will verify whether or not a data field is complete and accurate to what that format says. So if you had a date field and you had letters in the date field, it should come back and say, that's a problem. The search function, I do want to show you. I always like this function. I'll, try to open up a bigger file though so that you have something here. Oops. So the search function, just even putting in here locate record, 500 and hit OK, it brings you nicely down to that. So, if you do need to get down to record number 782,456, to scroll down to that using the scroll button is a bit of a pain. And just by, again, just going back to data search and typing the record number, that's useful. You can also do locate if, and then you can type an expression in, like, locate if the supplier number starts with a C or whatever, and then it will do the same thing that I just did there, but it'll jump down to where the supplier number starts off with an I as an example, and it'll say the first instance was found on record number 206. So again, it can be useful to search for things in your data, and I did want to show you that. Going to external data and external definition, this really goes to the importing section of ACL. We've had another webinar on that already, so I'm not going to go through how to import all these data files. But external data would just be the normal importing data. External definition is where you get a definition table from someone and you utilize that for importing data. And then the server, which I don't have, but if you did have the server, it would allow you to make access to the server and bring data files in from the server. Okay, so I did want to go through all of these items. I mean, from just a quick summary, we're going to touch on indexing, relating, joining tables, merging tables, sorting as part of today's session, probably a little extracting too. But again, we're touching on it all in more of a advanced way today, so wanted to note that.